It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard. Just finishing up a shift and going to be heading home soon. So, like everybody else, I'm doing car videos. Nothing to see, just listen to the voice. I wanted to come on and talk about a couple of things. There's some national news, and hopefully you guys can hear me. I can't tell either way if you can hear me or not. So, if you come on to the stream and you can hear me, throw a thumbs up. But I want to talk about some national news, and I also want to answer some questions that have been proposed on a couple of the threads, a couple of things that I've seen that I've posted questions to, and you guys have given some answers to. I want to kind of talk about that, but let's go ahead and talk about the national news. So, if you're not aware, I used to live in Missouri, and there was a story that came out of St. Louis. Actually, it came out of the Ferguson area. Now, you'll remember the Ferguson area in Missouri was the site of the Mike Brown shooting. That would have been back in like 2014, one of the first prominent, police encounters that kind of kicked off the Black Lives Matter movement. But Ferguson was the site of a major protest in Missouri after that situation. But it just came across my news feed, and the story was very, very interesting to me because it said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the article that I read and the news stories that I found on YouTube said that there was a security guard that was contracted and working legally, is working on his post at a gas station called Quick Trip. If you're from the Midwest, Quick Trip is like the bomb. I mean, it's a great gas station company. They have amazing ice. I know that sounds weird, but they have really good ice if you like fountain drinks, right? So, everybody that I know from the Midwest, like we love Quick Trip, right? So he's working at a Quick Trip. A person comes into the store and gets into an argument with the lady working behind the counter, right? So the security guard in this area that has had lots of problems, lots of issues. This is right outside of St. Louis. It's kind of a dangerous area. The security guard intervenes and gets the guy to leave, right? Then it says that the person leaves the location and comes back and gets into another altercation with the security guard and pulls a firearm on the security guard. Security guard, well within his right to defend himself, also pulls his firearm. Shots are exchanged. And now this is where the story goes like completely off the rails, because this is how it's written up. It says both the angry customer and the security guard exchange fire, both hitting each other. And it says that the security guard hit the customer and incapacitated the customer. The security guard was struck in the chest, but since he was wearing his bulletproof vest, only suffered non-life-threatening injuries. It says that the security guard was transported to the hospital where he was subsequently arrested and charged with voluntary manslaughter. And that's where the story ends. So I looked at 3 articles that were on Google, right? And that's literally how it's written up. That it literally tells you point by point. Guy comes into the Quick Trip, starts an argument with the cashier, the security guard who's literally posted legally working under contract, gets this person out of the store. The person leaves the premises, comes back with a firearm, gets into it with the security guard. Shots are exchanged. Security guard is hit in the bulletproof vest in the chest, taken to the hospital where he is subsequently arrested and charged with voluntary manslaughter. And I'm like, this doesn't make any fucking sense, right? So I go on YouTube and I start looking for the story, and the stories are all the same. They say the exact same thing. And then I find this one story where it talks about the video footage. And it says that the security guard lawfully shoots the customer and incapacitates him. It doesn't say that he kills him. And then it says that the security guard walks over to the subject, and while the subject is laying on his back with his hands up in surrender, The security guard shoots him. And then when you look at the definition of voluntary manslaughter, it basically says a crime of passion, that a person does something that leads to the death of another person, where the average person would look at that circumstance and say, yeah, this is a crime of passion. And it got me thinking about how easily security guards can go from the victim to the victimizer, can go from the victim to the perpetrator. And how easily, if we allow ourselves to give into our fear, our rage, our frustration, right? In this situation in Ferguson, Missouri, we're talking about a security guard who shoots someone out of, I mean, think of the adrenaline rush. Think of the emotions that's going through this security guard's mind, through his body, through his heart, as he's just been shot by someone that has come back to do him harm. Do we know if either of us, me included, would be able to withstand the temptation to do the same thing? And these are the kind of circumstances that we have to think about, because this guy is being held on, I think, $150,000 bond, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me. I think that was the number that I heard. Now, anytime that we talk about on this channel acts of aggression, we talk about working in security and getting into a situation where you go hands-on, clearly being involved in a shooting, and being involved in a shooting where you are being charged with voluntary manslaughter, like that's the extreme, right? But in any situation where you allow yourself to give into your frustration when you're dealing with these people, and guys, listen, you're all aware, if you're working in security, you know good and goddamn well that there are people that come into your location and they do everything that they can to get under your skin. They do everything that they can to try and frustrate you, to try and get at you, right? There's not a day that doesn't go by that someone comes into one of the locations where I'm working and call me a nigger. There's not one day that goes by that I don't deal with that. There's not one day that goes by where someone doesn't literally try to bait me into a physical altercation. But it's our job as professionals to not allow ourselves to get triggered. But that's so much easier said than done. And we're talking about, right now, I'm talking about situations that are far less serious than someone putting a fucking bullet in my chest. But that guy finds himself in that situation where he has now become the aggressor and has to answer for that in a court of law. And so many times when we talk about not allowing ourselves to get triggered, not allowing ourselves to get caught up in these situations where we're becoming the aggressor, that is such a small, thin line between victim and perpetrator. And it's a sliding scale from one side to the other for us in security. And I think absent having these thoughts or these conversations, these dialogues, many of us could find ourselves in this very same situation. I wanted to do a video where I talked about this, and I showed the news clip, and I showed some of the stories, but guys, you can Google it, you can find it. I push for you guys to do your due diligence and read this story. But think about that. Think about that. Think about how easily it would be to be in that officer's shoes. But guys, it doesn't have to be something as egregious as a shooting. There are times where it's hard to get across to officers that when someone has spit at you, we had a guy that spit at one of our loss prevention officers today, right? That happens a lot. Somebody spits at you, someone throws something at you, they get a push in on one of the staff, but they're leaving. And restraint is knowing that when that person is leaving, sometimes you have to eat that. Sometimes for the betterment of you not becoming the aggressor, you have to eat the shoulder check. You have to eat the spit that lands on your vest. And a lot of times in this kind of conversation, officers' response will be, no, fuck that. Guys, fuck that is what got the officer in Portland 2 years ago into a situation where he fired 6 shots into the front window of a guy that was stealing $3 worth of pallets from a Lowe's. And he's spending the next 25 to life of his fucking time, of his life in prison. Because this conversation, his response to that was, fuck that. Right? The guy that caught the bullet in his chest in St. Louis, in Ferguson, even though he had already incapacitated the guy, could have very easily rolled him over, put the handcuffs on him, and waited for the cops. No, his attitude was fuck that. And he emptied the clip into the guy, and now he's looking at 25 to life for voluntary manslaughter. The desire to get yours, the desire to put someone in their place, the desire to make someone fucking fuck around and find out, the desire to make that be the result of someone doing something to you is what is putting so many security guards behind bars and putting our industry in a bad light. We have to do better, guys. We have to be better than that. There's a responsibility that comes with what we're doing. There's a responsibility that comes with what we're being tasked to do. We cannot be on the same level as the people that we are dealing with. We got to rise above that. I know it's easier said than done. And I'm just broaching the conversation. I'm not saying this to you guys because I think that I'm better or that I think that I'm somehow, above making this mistake. Guys, I have made a ton of mistakes. I make a ton of mistakes every week. I'm not perfect. I get frustrated. I get tired of this bullshit. I do. But we have to make the effort to be better. And the only way that I can see where that is going to come into play is by us having these conversations and talking about this subject like we're doing right now. Because clearly, as we stated in the video this morning, the companies aren't going to do that, right? So I want you guys to Google that story. I want you to look into that. Okay, I'll leave that there. I want to answer some questions. Someone had asked me, what were my favorite work boots? My favorite duty boots, right? My favorite duty boots are the Merrell Moab 2 boots. Okay, again, that's the Merrell Moab 2 boots. They go for about $135 on Amazon. They are zip from the side. They're lace up. Great boots. Very, very comfortable. However, I will say, whatever boots you guys use, whether it's the Moab, you want to go with the Nikes, something like that, you need to be putting inserts in there. And I would say you should be switching out your inserts every month. Once a month, new inserts into the boots. Okay? And I try to switch out my boots between 3 and 6 months, depending on how long I'm working. It's probably been about a month and a half since I switched out these last pair. But definitely the Merrell Moab 2 boots, zip on the side, lace on the front. Someone asked what were my favorite pants. I like the 511 EMT pants. Now, some people have said that 511, the quality has gone down. I really have not had a bad experience with 511 pants. I order them right off of Amazon, but I get the EMT pants. They've got more pockets. They've got pockets directly in the front. And you can get them in a thicker version or you can get them in a thinner version. I prefer the thicker one because I wear a drop leg holster. And the thigh strap on the drop leg holster sometimes rubs a hole after 4 to 5 months of wearing them all the time. So I've gone to wearing that thicker version of pants because it'll last longer. Okay. So the 511 EMT pant. What was another question that someone had for me? I was just thinking about all the questions that I had. Hang on a second here. Was there anything else I wanted to talk to you guys about? So we talked about the Ferguson situation. We talked about the Moab boots. Talked about the EMT. Oh, one last thing before I get off of here tonight, guys. I asked a question today. Do you consider yourself a professional gunslinger? And most people said no. And it was a question that was directly set out for armed security. My question to you is this: what is a professional? And most people, even the most general response would be, a professional is someone who does something and gets paid for it or does it for a living. Guys, if you're carrying a firearm and you're getting paid for it, you're a professional. If your job is to use that firearm in defense of another person's life, i.e. armed security, at whatever location that you're stationed at, you are a professional. And when we talk about doing something for a living, the fact that you carry a firearm, CCW, EDC, you are protecting your own life and that of your family and anyone else that you deem to be important to you. You are literally doing something for a living. The living part being you, your family, or anybody else you wish to support or protect. What is more professional than carrying a firearm? You are a professional gunslinger. My point in bringing that up is that you need to be good at it. We were talking about the Colorado football team this morning. We were talking about the fact that it is what it is, the issues that Colorado is dealing with their football team, right? Another aspect of the Colorado football team, if you're following this, is that every single team that they're playing, the teams that are 7-0, whether that's Oregon, the teams that are 1-5, like Stanford, every single team, no matter who it is, every single week is bringing their A game. They are getting the absolute best out of every single team, whether they are a top tier team or whether they're a bottom barrel team. And as a professional gunslinger, we are more than likely going to get the A game of whoever we come in contact with in a situation where we have to use our firearm. On that day, whether it's a mass shooting, whether it's a robbery, whether it's a crackhead, on that day, when that person makes the decision to do whatever it is to us or our family or the people that we're protecting or anyone that we love, you better believe it's fucking game day. It's game day. They're serious. The person that is willing to shoot you, the person that is willing to rob you, the person that is willing to break into your home, the person that is willing to harm your family, it's fucking game day for them. And you best believe that they're bringing every single thing that they have. They do not have a problem harming you. They do not have a problem hurting you, and they do not have a problem killing you. So when we're talking about carrying a firearm, whether it's at work or EDC or at home, when it comes to the act of having access to a firearm and carrying a firearm, it's not a game. It's not a game. There's no excuse for not getting to the range. There's no excuse for not dry firing. There's no excuse for not doing magazine swaps. There's no excuse, because when the time comes, if the time comes, God forbid, you better be on your A game. As a firearms instructor and as a two-way advocate, I have a duty to implore you guys to get serious about your firearms handling skills. How you go about doing that is completely up to you. I don't know your time. I don't know your finances, but I know that if you're carrying a firearm and if you're wearing a firearm for work, you better be fucking good with it. That's just the reality, guys. Okay? Little late night motivation. When we come on here and we do these lives, we're going to go 100% raw. Last thing I want to say, that's what I was going to tell you about. I had someone comment, and this is not the first time. I get this comment all the time. whether it's on my videos, my lives, or when I'm talking to people in person. For some reason, there's always this desire for people to tell me to not use profanity. Guys, I'm pushing 50 years old. I'm going to talk the way that I talk. Now, I made it on Fox News, national television, and the video that got me on Fox News was me cussing up a storm. I have always told my kids, and I have 4 beautiful children, all of them in college on their way to being very successful human beings. If you can articulate yourself and you can understand the time, the place, and the situations in which you can use certain language, I don't care what you say. I don't care how you say it. You're responsible for everything you say. You're responsible for how other people receive it. You're responsible for which doors it opens for you and which doors it closes for you. But at almost 50 years old, I'm very comfortable and confident in my ability to both articulate myself with the King's English and also express myself with whatever language I wish, even if that's profane. I do not appreciate people trying to police speech. I don't. This is America. I served my country. I gave my body for my country. I am a disabled veteran. I have earned the right as an American. I have earned the right as a disabled veteran to say what I want to fucking say. And the fact that I'm able to make it onto national television across the board, I have been on multiple national broadcasts. And the fact that I was able to do that and speak the way that I wish to speak, dress the way that I wish to dress, it is what it is, okay? So if you're listening to this video and somewhere down the road you wish to police my speech, don't fucking do it, because I'm not giving up the way that I talk. I'm not changing the way that I talk. I am in very high places all throughout my life, and I speak the way that I speak, and I'm able to articulate myself how I wish. Okay? So that was the last thing I was going to tell you, and I almost forgot. So there. And before we sign off, one more fuck for everybody who has a problem with profane language. Go fuck yourself. All right? Have a great night.